Today our group will present a strategic analysis of Qantas Airways. In this presentation, we will link real data from Qantas reports with macroeconomic theory. We aim to explain how these 45 aspects together shape Qantas' success in Australia's aviation market. Now let's Oliver introduce this first part to us.
Critical evaluation of Qantas Airways' cost structure and impact of input prices on profitability. Overview of the financial performance. Alright. Qantas achieved a high growth rate of 8.6%, which has been majorly due to sustained growth in passenger demand and higher yields, but costs are still increasing fairly quickly, displaying ongoing cost inflation. However, profitability has improved due to better utilisation of their capacity and efficiency, which offsets the high operating and fuel costs. So, breakdown of cost structure. Qantas's cost base is mostly made up of variable, operational, and fixed capital costs, which is typical of airlines which have lots of employees and lots of planes. Fuel and labour-intensive operations mean that input prices changes directly impact profitability. Despite cost pressures, Qantas maintained margin growth by improving productivity and controlling non-fuel costs. Profitability and efficiency trends. Underlying EBIT, earnings before interest and tax, rose from 10.4% in 2024 to 11.1% in 2025, showing modest profit recovery. Fuel savings supported EBIT growth, even as wage and maintenance costs rose. Growth depreciated by 13%, indicating high capital intensity, which increases future fixed costs risk. Operating cash flow improved by 24%, but free cash flow fell due to a heavier capital investment, investing cash outflows, which is 32%. These observations signal profit recovery but weaker cash conversion, which is typical of a capital-heavy expansion cycle. Okay, sensitivity to input prices. Fuel prices. Fuel remains the second largest cost as it makes up 24% of costs. A 10% rise in fuel prices could increase expenditure by around $500 million AED, reducing PBT, profit before tax, by around 20%, if not offset by fuel surcharges or hedging. Qantas's ongoing hedging program likely helped it avoid sharp oil price changes in 2025, but long-term exposure continues. Investment in newer, more fuel-efficient aircrafts, such as the A350 and the A321XLRs, is expected to lower the per-seat fuel burn, which will remove volatility over time. Labour and operating costs. Operating expenses, excluding fuel, rose by 13%, making it the fastest growing cost category. This reflects rising wages, maintenance, and airport handling fees, alongside broader cost inflation across the aviation sector. Labour represents roughly 40% of this category, meaning that if there is a 5% increase in wages, it could reduce EBIT by $285 million AED. Increased by 13%, reflecting fleet renewal and technology investment. While this adds non-cash expense now, it enhances fuel efficiency and reduces maintenance costs long term. However, if demand weakens, high fixed costs will cause profit declines, showing high operational leverage risk. Cash flow implications. Qantas continues to generate cash but is capital hungry. The airline strategy of reinvestment and moderate developing supports future resilience but limits short-term dividends. High operational leverage. Qantas's fixed costs multiply earnings during strong demand periods but increase vulnerability in downturns. Fuel dependencies. Even with improved hedging and efficiency, Qantas remains highly vulnerable to global oil markets, which could pressure profits as sustainability costs rise. Wage inflation. Persistent industrial relation challenges may keep labour costs structurally high, reducing flexibility and cost control. Fleet renewal as a cost hedge. Modern aircraft investment, aka Project Sunrise and A321neo, should reduce fuel and maintenance expenses over the long term, partially offsetting inflationary pressures. Qantas's 2025 financial performance highlights a stable but cost-intensive business model with moderate profitability gains despite rising input costs. Fuel costs decreasing slightly, aiding margins, but labour and operating costs rose significantly, reflecting inflationary and regulatory pressures. Profitability improved, yet cash flow weakened due to higher capital investment. The airline's exposure to volatile fuel prices and wage pressures underscores the need for continued cost discipline, efficiency programs, and hedging strategies. In essence, Qantas's cost structure remains highly sensitive to input price movements, and sustaining profitability depends on effective cost management, fleet modernization, and maintaining strong passenger yields.
Now let's move to the second part, whether Qantas benefits from the economics of scale in its operation. As Oliver said in the previous section, Qantas costs are mostly fixed costs. So here we want to find out that the larger operation help Qantas spread the fixed costs. Let's look at this step by step. Before we dive into the Qantas data, let's quickly understand what is the economies of scale. In microeconomics, economies of scale means a reduction in long-run average cost as output increases. Like this LRAC curve, we can say that the downward sloping represents the economics of scale. To make it easier to imagine, for example, when you buy a toilet paper, at the Woolworths, a big pack is cheaper per roll because transport and packaging costs can spread over a larger quantity. In the same way, the Qantas also has high fixed costs in many areas. So if there are more flights and carry more passengers, there will be a lower average cost per seat. That is the basic idea of the economics of scale. Now let's look at the Qantas data to see if it is really happening. Here is a summary indicators table I made from the Qantas 2024 and 25 annual report. In this table, we can see that the ASK reached the high billions and up 8% from the last year, and the passenger number hit about 56 million. Load factors rose to the 85%, and all these below figures shows the Qantas is a larger scaled high fixed cost business. This is a perfect setting for the economics of the scale. After we know Qantas has grown larger, it's time to see whether that the scale lowered its cost per unit. This is the direct evidence of ES. In FY 2025, total unit costs fall to 9.49, and there are 2.5% lower than last year. As the ASK and the seat factor improved, Qantas spread fixed cost over more seat kilometers. This is much the LRAC downward part. This will showing a clear economics of scale. And now let's look at how Qantas achieves scale benefits. There are three main strategies. The first one is spreading fixed costs, as we analyzed before. The expenses like the aircraft, the pilot training, and some facility and IT system stay the same no matter how many flights run. So when the Qantas increase the number of the flights and passengers, these costs are spread more widely. And second one is bulk purchasing and bargaining power. Under Project Winton, the Qantas purchased the aircraft in bulk, and also in 2025, there are also a Project Sunrise rules, and our group member will introduce it later. So according to this purchasing figure, we can find that larger order means better price and higher fuel efficiency. And third one is the loyalty program and the network effects. And according to all these members, we know that more member means more repeat passenger and the higher seat utilization and the stable cash flow. Finally, based on the above analysis, we can confidently say that Qantas truly benefits from the economies of scale, and the three strategies together achieve this.
Today, I will be discussing the extent of Qantas market power on domestic versus international routes, drawing on industry data and Qantas' own financial reports. Market power means a firm's ability to influence price, capacity, and competition, rather than just reacting to market force. Let's begin with the domestic market. The Australian domestic aviation market is highly concentrated, essentially duopoly between the Qantas Group and Virgin Australia. As for March 2025, Qantas and Jetstar together had 63.9% together, of total passenger share, Qantas 37.5% and Jetstar 26.4%, while Virgin Australia held 34.4% and Riksjas 1.7%. According to ACCC's 2025 report, the collapse of Banza and Riksjas withdrawal with major city routes have further reduced competition. This concentration means Qantas can strongly influence pricing and capacity decisions, especially on key trunk routes such as Sydney to Melbourne and Brisbane to Sydney. Qantas' market power is also reinforced by regulatory barriers. First, corporate restriction prevents foreign airlines from operating domestic routes, protecting local carriers. Second, Sydney Airport's laws controls limit access to peak times. Although a new independent laws manager started in 2025, Qantas still holds most premium slots. Finally, the Treasurer has directed the ACCC to monitor the domestic market until 2026 to ensure fair competition. Altogether, these policies create high entry barriers, allowing Qantas to maintain dominance in the domestic market. Financial data clearly reflect Qantas' domestic strength. In FY25, its domestic segment earned $2.6 Australian billion EBIT, with a 40% profit margin, one of the highest in the industry. In the first half of FY25 alone, it achieved 19 and 16 million Australian dollar EBIT, driven by strong business travel demand. Qantas carried 80% of corporate travelers and 54% of SME traffic. Its dual-brand strategy, premium Qantas and low-cost Jetstar, enables effective market segmentation, capturing both high-end and price-sensitive customers. So overall, Qantas' domestic market power is built on concentration, regulation, and strategic brand position. Now look at the international routes, the picture is changes. Here, Qantas faces intense competition from many foreign airlines, including Singapore Airlines and so on. Unlike the domestic duopoly, this market is higher fragmented. As a result, Qantas' international EBIT margin is only 8%, compared with the Qantas domestic 14%. International operations are tightly controlled by bilateral air service agreements and open skies policies. These rules prevent Qantas from freely setting capacity or prices. Instead, governments negotiate access, often favoring multiple airlines. For example, Qatar Air will gain ACCC and government approval to acquire 25% of Virgin Australia and launch 28 new weekly Australian Doha flights, further increasing competition. To offset it, Qantas uses strategic partnership. It's a founding member of the One World Alliance, partners closely with Emirates for European Connect via Dubai, and is investing in Project Sunrising ultra-long-haul flights from Sydney and Melbourne to New York and London. This cooperation helps Qantas maintain network strength despite competitive pressure. The table summarizes the key contrasts. To conclude, domestically, Qantas enjoys significant market power thanks to dominance, government protection, and a dual-brand strategy. Internationally, its power is limited by competition and regulation, but strengthens through partnership like One World and Emirates. This comparison shows how Qantas adapts its strategy to very different market environments, using control and regulation to maintain dominance at home, and cooperation and innovation to compete globally.
Okay, so in my previous scene, we established the fact that Qantas has market power as it acts as a duopoly in its own domestic market. It gives itself the power to set its market price over the marginal costs, and in order to maximize its profit, it uses price discrimination by identifying different demand elasticities as well as preventing reselling. Each airline's pricing strategies is done by observing its rivals' responses rival strategies, and that's how it gets the best response out of its highest profits out of its strategy. Which oligopoly model fits Qantas the best? It clearly shows that in terms of the model which it fits best, we can't exactly qualify it under a specific category, but rather that it depends upon what sort of pricing strategy it's using, whether it's a price war with Virgin resulting in a first degree price competition, or it's like ordering more of its aircrafts resulting in higher capacity to overpower its competitor, which then again results in second degree quantity competition. Lastly, it's the first mover advantage. It's a different sort of strategy it applies, which basically is announcing its new routes, timetables, and slots to ensure a dominance over its rivals, behaving as a leader to create the first move. This is established by the differentiated Barton reaction curves. You can clearly see how flat the Qantas reaction curve is, showing a stronger brand and less sensitive customers and people. It clearly shows that how loyal the customers are towards Qantas's prices, and in order to create not too much profits, it clearly shows that both of the airlines come to a Nash equilibrium, a meeting point where both the firms set a price where neither can profitably change. This is clearly established by the real-world data analysis that I just explained. Moving on to how exactly Qantas segments its market. If it is segmenting by its traveler type, whether they are a business passenger or a leisure passenger who just looks for sales or discounts in its ticket prices, and that's when they book, it clearly is dependent upon its elasticity. If it's a highly elastic demand, then it's gonna have lower prices. If it's an inelastic demand, it's gonna have higher prices. And all of these are done by the single motive of profit maximization, which is clearly again established by the fact that all the margin revenue curves of both the business and the leisure demands cross with or intersect with the marginal cost curve, and exactly that's where the price has been set and the equilibrium points are established. Also, if we come in terms of domestic or international, if it is operating in an international market, it has higher competition. If it's operating in a domestic market, it has higher power to control the prices. So yeah, this is how they segment their prices. Coming on to second degree discrimination, which is also implemented by Qantas, how that's done by versioning, again, lower prices, higher price elasticity of demand, and business classes, which they give the versioning is done is basically by the different types of services for different elasticities. They offer premium services for the business class, hence charging higher prices, which completely makes sense for the customers. Then is done by bundling, allowing the customers to self-select whether they want to choose their seats or they want food, baggage types, holiday packages, completely upon the customers, creating variety of the prices. Time versioning, exactly how it suggests, early bookings cheaper than last minute fares. And lastly, coming to the frequent flyer benefits, which is basically how Qantas categorizes its loyal members through points and creates a dynamic menu pricing system, which is basically shown how each of the customers, the higher the points they have, the higher facilities they get in terms of classes and all that. Coming to the last point, how it creates strategic alliances in the international market and expands its global reach. It's a founding member of One World Alliance. Okay. So last but not least, it's the Strategic Partnership Alliance. It's how Qantas creates a global reach through creating a One World Alliance, connecting with more than 12 plus airlines and 900 plus destinations, which mainly sums up to the point that Qantas believes in collaborating with its competitors rather than competing against them in providing loyalty programs, lounges and everything. hence reducing its competitors and applying the microeconomic theories minutely throughout all of its pricing strategies.
Hey guys, I'm going to talk about the potential for monopoly power in Qantas on coming direct ultra-long haul routes from Sydney and Melbourne to New York and London. Non-stop ultra-long haul flight is a distinct product which saves time and avoids the uncertainty of stock hours, catering to premium and high-income travelers. So, what creates potential monopoly power of Qantas in this market? Qantas has launched the non-stop routes from Perth to London, which means Qantas owns many advantages in operational experience. And as we analyzed previously, Qantas benefits a lot from economics of scale. All of these are beneficial to gain an advantage in the competition on direct ultra-long haul routes for Qantas. Also, as we have previously talked about Qantas pricing strategies and the practice of price discrimination, similarly, as it targets bound business and high-income travelers who are often less sensitive to price. This benefits Qantas in earning higher premiums through price discrimination. And it is noteworthy that in the future, to a large extent, in my prediction, an important factor to promote the potential strong monopoly power of Qantas in this sector will be the advantage of aircraft types. The planned two ultra-long haul routes both exceed 16 million kilometers, which means that flying directly requires specialized aircraft. For this purpose, Qantas launched Project Sunrise in 2017, for which I quote, to take on the final frontal elevation directly flies from Sydney to Europe and New York. The aircraft is scheduled to arrive in October 2026. Nowadays, in direct ultra-long haul road sector, the most competitive airlines are almost exclusively Qantas and Singapore Airlines. And even when considering the provision of high-end but non-direction ultra-long haul routes as an alternative, the competition is still not very intense. Based on this, we simplify the model as Qantas, major competitor 1, 2, 3, and the other competitor to calculate HHI. Assume that Qantas occupies 30% of the market share. The final HHI equals 2,200. Similarly, if we assume that Qantas takes 5% of the market share, the final HHI will over 3,000. This is much higher than standard of highly concentrated market. This basically means because of the non-stop products, it's so narrow. Even if Qantas only occupies 30% of the market share, the entire market is already moderately concentrated. As long as Qantas occupies half of the market, it means the entire market will become a highly concentrated market. However, several forces will limit the durability of this power. Firstly, the substitutability from one-stop itineraries remains strong. Price-sensitive passengers can and will choose their cheaper connecting lines through housing agents. Also, Qantas should be cautious about the conduct that could trigger ACCC review, abuse of dominance, exclusionary contracts, for instance. Finally, cost risk should also be paid attention. The 2025 annual report treats the viability of fuel and sustainable aviation fuel costs. This could reduce the monopoly profits, particularly on extra-long sections where fuel is the dominant cost. So, in conclusion, what is the likely outcome? In the short term, Qantas will enjoy substantial market power in the non-stop products, getting higher willingness to pay from premier travelers. The barriers to entry are all in its favor, but in the long term, this monopoly power is constrained. One-stop competition, cost pressures, and strong regulation will all limit Qantas' ability to sustain the monopoly pricing power.
To summarize our group's findings, Qantas, as a major monopoly force in Australia's domestic airline industry, has benefited significantly from cost structure, economics of scale, and price discrimination, and will continue to be a significant force in ultra-long haul travel. However, Qantas still faces certain risks in their cost structure and its ability to maintain its monopoly position. Okay, that's all our group's report.